dawn, they knocked with urgency. "Grandma, flee now!" What unbelievable truth was revealed? Emily Green woke abruptly, heart racing, as frantic knocks reverberated through the quiet of the early morning. The old wooden door rattled against the frame, an ugly shriek that shattered her dreams of leaving this town behind. "Grandma, flee now!" she cried, urgency spilling from her lips. Ruth, her grandmother, sat up, gaze alarmed. For years, their family homestead had cradled stories long woven into the very walls, stories of laughter, struggle, and resilience, all echoing through the darkened hallways. "What's happening, Em?" Ruth's voice trembled, sensing the storm brewing beyond our sanctuary. "Please, it's the corporation. They're coming for us." Tears brimmed in Emily's eyes, tasting like the bitter fear that gripped her heart. They shared a world bound by dreams and memories, a fragile thread now strained. Together, they scrambled for anything that could remind them of a happier time. A faded photograph, her grandfather's old fishing rod lined with dust, the treasures of their past that made their home a sanctuary. The sound grew louder, urgency dancing in the echoes. As Emily clutched her grandmother's hand, panic sprinted through her veins. Would they have a place to return to after this night? "They can't take it from us. We'll fight!" But a knot tightened in her chest. If only she knew how. Stepping outside, the dawn embraced them with uncertainty. The air was thick, palpable with dread, as if the town itself held its breath, waiting for whatever would come next. The familiar chill of fear wrapped around Emily like a wet blanket. "Emily, listen to me," Ruth's voice broke through the fog. "Years ago, I said no to them. I turned down their offer, the same corporation that wants to tear this community apart. I couldn't let them break our spirit." Emily felt the weight of this truth press down on her, igniting a fire within, a mix of anger and a fierce pride that coursed through her veins. "Why didn't you tell me?" The revelation twisted in her gut, each word turning the reason she tried to escape into a reason to stay. As they gazed across the fading dusk, silhouettes of defiant storefronts stood like sentinels, testaments to the heart of the community. Emily clenched Ruth's hand tighter, drawing strength from the woman standing beside her, even as fear tore at their dreams. But could they muster the courage to lead their neighbors against the mighty corporation's machine? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from.
I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The sun had begun to break through the horizon, a golden promise painting the sky above them in hues of resilience. Yet, with hope came questions. Would the community rally together when it mattered most? Would Emily choose to uphold her grandmother's legacy, risking everything she dreamt of? With dawning determination, Emily looked back at their home, the walls live with memories, the laughter, the love, the sacrifices. The resolution coursed within her, igniting an indomitable spirit, ready to confront the daunting truth of their past. Together, they could be the voice of the voiceless, the shield against encroaching darkness. As the light expanded, illuminating the small town they had always known, Emily whispered a silent vow. They would not go down without a fight. Would they find the strength to rise, to stand united against the powerful hand of greed? The morning air crackled with promise, but so too with uncertainty, an invitation to join in a battle that could reshape their lives forever. Emily stood on the threshold, the sun's first rays casting an ethereal glow around her and Ruth. The moment felt surreal, suspended in time. Around them, the quiet of the town contrasted sharply with the chaos they anticipated. A light breeze stirred the leaves, whispering secrets of the past, urging them to hold on tightly to what mattered. "Ruth, we need to gather everyone," Emily said, her voice firm, yet her heart pounded wildly. "We need to let them know what's at stake." Ruth nodded, her expression resolute. "You're right. They can't be left in the dark any longer. They deserve to know why we must stand together." They rushed through the narrow streets, their urgency propelling them forward. Emily's mind raced with thoughts of her friends, her neighbors. Their faces formed a tapestry of memories just like those in her home. She could see Jenna, always quick to lend a hand, and Mark, who had spent countless nights fixing cars just to help the community. Each step was heavy with the weight of hope and fear intertwined. As they approached the town square, Emily noticed a small crowd gathering, murmurs of worry and confusion bouncing from person to person. She stepped onto an old wooden crate, her heart stirring with the thrill of rallying her community, and raised her hands for silence. "Please," she called out, her voice cutting through the haze. "Everyone, we need to talk." Eyes turned to her, curiosity and concern mingling in their depths. Emily locked eyes with Ruth, who stood in support, her expression strong. "It's about the corporation," she began, her words carrying the urgency of their situation. "They're coming to tear our lives apart, but together, we can fight back." A ripple of disbelief ran through the crowd. "Emily, are you sure?" Jenna asked, stepping forward, her brow furrowed. "I thought they abandoned this idea."
"They haven't," Ruth interjected, her voice steady. "I turned down their offer ages ago. We have to stand united, or we risk losing everything this town represents." Silence blanketed them, the weight of her words settling in. Fear hovered like shadows, but they burned bright with anger, angry at the audacity of the corporation and the threat it posed. "So what do we do?" asked Mark, looking between Emily and Ruth. Emily inhaled deeply. "We organize. We gather support. We can write to everyone, draw up petitions, make our voices heard. No one can decide our future for us." A murmur of agreement passed through the crowd, determination igniting within. Emily felt a spark ignite in her chest, a moment she had never imagined possible. Here stood her community, her family, ready to rise together. But even as they began to pull together plans, Emily's heart ached with the fear of the unknown. Were they truly ready to take on such a colossal force? While they started to brainstorm ideas, a flicker of doubt crept into her mind. What if they didn't succeed? What if the fight against the corporation only tore them apart? As they formed smaller groups, voices overlapping in determination, Emily's thoughts turned inward. She could feel an ever-growing sense of responsibility weighing upon her shoulders. What if her dreams of escape had only blinded her to the strength she could find in staying and fighting? Just then, Ruth leaned closer, her voice a low whisper. "Em, it's going to take courage, but I believe in us. We can do this." The moment hung between them. Emily knew they had to push forward, but uncertainty clawed at her insides as well. Would they manage to unite their neighbors before it was too late? The crowd began to disperse, energy crackling in the air, and Emily felt both alive and terrified, ready to step into the unknown. As they made their way home, hand in hand, the sun now high in the sky, Emily's resolve deepened. She'd fight for this town. But as evening approached, a dark cloud loomed on the horizon, ominous and foreboding. What would happen when the corporation finally arrived? Would they be ready to face their past, to confront the shadows threatening to engulf them? With every beat of her heart, Emily prepared herself for the battle ahead. The fight for their home had just begun, and she couldn't shake the feeling that a confrontation lay just around the corner. Emily decided to meet at her house the next morning. With the sun rising early, casting soft hues across the sky, she felt renewed energy coursing through her. She knew today was critical, a day of action against the looming threat. The air was electric with possibilities, and for the first time, hope began to outweigh her fear. In the cozy kitchen, she set out coffee and pastries, preparing to welcome her neighbors. Ruth arrived first, her hair tousles, but her eyes fierce with determination. She smiled, the kind of smile that could cut through fog.
"Morning," Ruth said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "Are you ready for this?" Emily nodded, but felt her stomach twist. "Do you think they'll show up?" "They will. They care about this place," Ruth replied. "It's time to remind them what we're fighting for." More neighbors began arriving, filling the small house with laughter and chatter. Jenna was the next in, followed by Mark, Anna from next door, and a few others. The warmth of their presence pushed the chill of worry away. "Okay, everyone," Emily called out, her voice rising above the crowd. "We need to create a focused plan. Time is short. The corporation could hit us with anything." As they gathered around the large table, Emily noticed the fidgeting hands, nervous glances, and deep breaths. This was the moment of truth for each of them, clinging on to their shared stories, their childhood memories etched into every corner of this town. "Let's make a list," Mark suggested. "What are our strengths? What do we have that we could use against them?" "Unity," Ruth replied immediately. "They underestimate how tightly knit we are. We can show up at their meetings, put pressure on them, rally the whole town." Ideas flowed, building momentum. Then Emily felt a shift in the atmosphere. Someone knocked hard at the door. It was an insistent sound, shattering the light-hearted moment. "Who could that be?" Jenna asked, her breath hitching in her throat. Emily approached the door cautiously. When she pulled it open, a messenger stood there, breathless and wide-eyed. "Emily, you need to gather everyone immediately. It's urgent." What's happened? She asked, fear prickling at the edges of her calm. Your grandmother's house. It's not safe. The corporation is planning something big. They could arrive any time. She needs to get out. Panic surged through the room. The whispers of concern escalated, undulating into a frantic hum. The gravity of the message crashed over her like icy water. Her grandmother was at risk, and if they found her, it would shatter everything her family had built. I need to go, Emily gasped, her heart racing. We have to get her out now. Ruth grabbed her arms, anchoring her in place. Em, wait. If we rush in, it might endanger her more. We need a plan. Remember what we just talked about, staying united. We can't let fear dictate our actions. Emily took a deep breath, trying to ground herself. She felt torn, anxiety coiling tightly in her chest. You're right, but Grandma... Another knock echoed through the house, louder this time. Emily, we need to decide now. Fighting back tears, she glanced at all their faces, but one word echoed louder in her mind. Family. I'll lead a small group to Grandma's, she declared, her voice trembling but resolute. We can't leave her behind. Everyone else, you stay here and prepare to gather more people to join us. We'll need every mind and hand on deck.
As she sprinted out the door with Ruth beside her, a harrowing fear churned within her. What would she discover at her grandmother's house? What other truths waited around the corner? With each pounding footstep, she felt the weight of the unknown pressing down, pushing her forward into an uncertain fate. Could they shield their loved ones from this powerful corporation? Would the confrontation unveil more than just threats? As they raced through the streets, the oppressive cloud overhead cast a dark shadow. What awaited them at home was about to change everything. As Emily and Ruth sprinted towards her grandmother's house, the world around them seemed to blur. The streets, usually filled with the sounds of children playing and neighbors chatting, felt unnaturally quiet. The only noise was the thud of their feet against the pavement, a reminder of the urgency that pulsed through their veins. Each step brought images of her grandmother to the forefront of Emily's mind. She pictured her small, warm kitchen filled with the scent of baking bread, the late afternoon sun streaming through the window, and her laughter that rang like music. The thought of that sanctuary being violated sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. Do you think she knows? Ruth's voice broke through Emily's racing thoughts. There was a tremor in her friend's tone, an uncharacteristic crack. I don't think so, Emily panted, forcing her legs to move faster. But we can't let her find out. She's dealt with enough already. As they rounded a corner, they could see her grandmother's house in the distance, familiar, yet now tainted with the knowledge of lurking danger. The flowers Emily had planted last summer were wilting, and the porch light flickered with an eerie glow, as if it too sensed the chaos ahead. They reached the front door, and Emily didn't hesitate. Fumbling with the keys, her fingers shook with fear. Hurry, let's get inside before anyone sees us. When the door swung open, a wave of warmth enveloped them, but Emily's heart sank as she took in the sight. Her grandmother's favorite quilt lay draped over the back of the couch. Everything looked the same, yet it felt different. The air was thick with tension, each dark corner whispering secrets of what could be. Grandma, Emily called out, but her voice echoed back, devoid of a reply. Ruth's eyes darted around the room. What if she's not here? She has to be. She wouldn't leave without telling me, Emily insisted, her resolve hardening even as a shadow of doubt crept in. They moved cautiously through the house, peeking into the kitchen, the bathroom, and finally the small bedroom at the end of the hall. Emily, Ruth's voice was barely a whisper as she turned into the bedroom, the tension snapping like a taut wire. There, sitting in the old rocking chair by the window, was her grandmother. She looked radiant, bathed in soft sunlight, yet Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The warmth of the room had turned to ice. Gram! Emily rushed to her side, heart racing. We need to... But her grandmother held up a hand, her expression serious and calm. I know why you're here, dear. What? How could you possibly know? Emily felt a shift in the air, a biting realization nudging at her. I've been waiting for you, her grandmother replied, eyes glimmering with an unexpected knowledge. And more importantly, for the right moment to tell you the truth. Emily felt her chest tighten. Truth? What truth? The old woman leaned forward, and the room seemed to contract around them, each breath loaded with unspoken weight. They're not just after the land. It's far more complicated than that. Our family has a history, one they don't want anyone to uncover. Ruth traded a quick glance with Emily, confusion sparking between them. Grandma, what do you mean? It's time you know, she began, her voice steady, yet the tremor in her hands betrayed her. Just then, a short noise from outside shattered their concentration, a loud crash, followed by muffled shouting. The world outside had turned chaotic, just as Emily's heart began to race. Em, what do we do? Ruth asked, urgency flickering in her eyes. Emily's mind raced.
They needed answers, but danger was closing in fast. We have to listen to her, but we need to be ready. And with that, their fates intertwined with the rising storm, an electrifying force not just threatening their safety, but unraveling the very fabric of their lives. Would the truths shared bring them closer, or tear them further apart? As tense silence settled over the room, the echoes of shouts grew louder. Would they discover not only the answers they sought, but also the strength buried deep within? The shouting outside intensified, pulsing like a drumbeat in Emily's ears. Her gaze snapped back to her grandmother, whose eyes shone with a mixture of fear and fierce determination. For a split second, Emily's breath caught, and she felt the weight of their situation crashing down on her. "Emily, listen to me," her grandmother said, the quiet urgency cutting through the chaos. "You need to understand. They want to erase what we know, what we are, but we can't let that happen." "Who, Grandma? Who are they?" Ruth asked, her voice trembling but steadfast. Emily took a step closer to her grandmother, trying to gauge her expression. The old woman, usually so composed and warm, seemed somehow smaller in that moment, her fragility exposed. "They're part of a past we thought we left behind," her grandmother began, her voice steady, yet tinged with sorrow. "A part of our family history tied to the land itself. The secrets buried in these walls." "Secrets?" Emily echoed, trying to piece it all together. "Like what?" Before her grandmother could answer, another crash thundered from outside, followed by frantic footsteps. Emily's heart raced. The urgency of their situation pressed down on her like a heavy blanket.
"Get to the basement," her grandmother instructed, rising quickly from her chair, a surprising strength radiating from her frail frame. "We have to go now." "Are you sure?" Ruth asked, her eyes wide with alarm, glancing between the two women. "Trust me, I'll explain everything when we're safe." Emily nodded. Without hesitation, she grabbed her grandmother's hand, feeling the coolness of her skin as they moved towards the door. "Move quick! They might have already seen us." They rushed down the narrow hallway, the echoes of shouting growing closer. Emily caught a glimpse of the old rocking chair, still swaying slightly in the wake of her grandmother's hasty departure. In the basement, the air was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the chaos above. There were crates piled high, shadows pooling in the corners. Emily's heart thundered in her chest as they ducked behind a stack of boxes, holding their breath. "What are we going to do?" Ruth whispered, panic lacing her voice. "We wait," her grandmother answered, her voice a soothing balm, though her eyes were ablaze with urgency. "And then we act." Emily glanced at her grandmother, her heart aching for the woman who had always been her rock. "What secrets could be so dangerous?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're tied to the land, Emily. Our ancestors fought for it," her grandmother began, but the sound of footsteps above them drowned her words. "We're not just ordinary people. We have a legacy." Emily's mind raced with questions. Legacy? What did that even mean? Just then, the basement door creaked open, light pouring in from the top of the stairs. The silhouette of a figure loomed, casting a long shadow, threatening and ominous. "Grandma," Emily gasped, squeezing her hand tighter, her heart pounding in her ears. "Stay quiet," her grandmother hissed, eyes wide. The tension crackled in the air. As the figure descended slowly, a chilling realization sank in. They had come for answers, but it seemed those answers would come at a cost. What did your grandmother know? Emily wondered, dread coiling in her stomach. She had a feeling whatever truth they uncovered could change everything. And as the figure stepped into the basement, the unthinkable truth hung in the air, ready to be revealed, yet cloaked in danger. Would they be able to face the reality awaiting them? The figure paused at the top of the stairs, casting a long shadow that sent shivers up Emily's spine. She could see the dim outline of a cap, a dark coat that swallowed the light. Her breath quickened as the steps echoed against the cold stone floor. "Stay hidden," her grandmother mouthed, her voice firm, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her resolve. They huddled closer together, the crates pressing against their backs as Emily fought to steady her racing heartbeat. The figure descended. Each step seemed to resonate through Emily's core, a countdown of sorts. Time stood still, anxiety thick in the air.
Who was this person? What threats lay behind that door? The figure finally reached the basement floor, the source of illumination revealing a rugged face, framed with thick, dark hair. It was a man, his features carved with intensity, scanning the room like a predator hunting its prey. Emily's heart sank when he spoke, gravelly and low. "I know you're down here," he called out, his eyes narrowing as they flicked across the shadows. Emily's throat constricted. She instinctively reached for her grandmother's hand again, feeling the familiar warmth, but also a slight tremor she had only seen during moments of deep distress.
Don't come out, her grandmother whispered, tense yet resolute. I'll handle this. Handle what? Emily's voice trembled, the weight of fear bearing down. Did her grandmother know this man? What did he want? Listen, her grandmother urged softly. He's only a messenger. We can't let him take us. We have to stay strong. What do you mean? And what does he want? Ruth interrupted, her voice barely a whisper, but filled with urgency. Just stay put, her grandmother repeated, but the warmth in her voice faltered as the man stepped closer, casting aside the last of the light and pushing further into the basement. What do you want? Emily heard herself say, the defiance momentarily overcoming her fear. A moment of silence hung in the air, heavy and thick. The man grinned, but it was devoid of warmth. It's not what I want, he replied, his eyes glinting with some dark intention. It's about the past, your family's past. He paused, fixing Emily with a piercing gaze. Your grandmother knows more than she's letting on, and it's time you learn the truth. Emily's pulse raced. Truth? What truth? Her grandmother's secret suddenly felt like a shard of ice nestled deep within her heart. What did you say? She demanded, crossing the small space between them, emboldened by swirling emotions. Ask her about the land, the man said, gesturing dismissively. About what happened when they took it from your family. There's so much you don't understand. Emily, no, her grandmother hissed, panic rippling through her tone. You must stay back. A crackle of defiance sparked in Emily. Her blood raced, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate need for answers. If it's my family's history, then I deserve to know. The man stepped closer, a dangerous smirk lingering on his lips. Then you're in for a treat. But I'm afraid there are costs to be paid for such knowledge. The basement felt like it was closing in around them. Questions swirled in Emily's mind, and fear mingled with the desperate need for answers. What was the cost? What could they lose if they stepped into the light of this truth? As the man took another step forward, Emily stood her ground. She was ready for whatever was next, her heart racing with the thrill of the unknown. Why are you doing this? Why now? She shot back, a flicker of courage igniting within her.
The man stopped, a hint of surprise crossing his face. Because it's time the truth came out. Your legacy has been buried too long. Just then, footsteps echoed louder from the stairs above, interrupting the tense standoff. They're coming again, her grandmother whispered, eyes wide in panic. Emily's mind raced, caught between the fear of what was about to unfold and the exhilarating urge to uncover her family's long-buried past. And all she could think was, what would it take to keep them safe? But more importantly, what would happen when the truth finally came to light? Before Emily could respond, the man's expression shifted to one of urgency, masked by impatience. Time is not your friend, he said, glancing up toward the stairs as if sensing the approach of whatever threat lay above them. His words hung in the air, dense with foreboding. Then tell me what you know, Emily demanded, feeling a surge of determination. If you're a messenger, deliver your message. Emily, please. Her grandmother's voice trembled, a mix of fear and heartbreak in her tone. We can't afford to anger him. But Emily was so close to unraveling everything, the strands of family history stretching thin, just out of reach. You say I deserve to know. Then stop stalling. The man regarded her for a moment, eyebrows furrowing, as if weighing his options. The land you grow up on holds secrets, secrets that have cost lives. Emily felt as though a weight had been dropped on her chest. She thought of their small farm, the fields that always looked so normal, so filled with simple joys. What do you mean? What happened? She pressed, her voice persistent, shaking with urgency. The land was taken unjustly, the man explained, his voice low and rasping. Years ago, your family, your forebears, were driven away, wronged by powerful men who wanted control, and they were silenced, until now. His words were like shards of glass slicing through Emily's certainty. There had always been whispers, her grandmother's tight-lipped demeanor, the old photos of stern-faced ancestors. Were they hiding something so significant? The footsteps above grew louder, the echoing sound rattling Emily's nerves. They're coming, the man said again, more insistently. If you truly want to understand, you must come with me now. Come where? Emily asked, heart pounding as fear clawed at her. Somewhere safe, where you can learn everything, he replied, backing toward the shadows where light could no longer touch him. But you must trust me. Trust you? Emily felt a swell of indignation rise. You stride in here like some shadowy figure, and you want trust? Why should I? Because there are worse fates than the truth, and they are right above you. He motioned to the stairs, where the footsteps grew more frantic. They are searching. I can protect you,
But you must act fast. Emily's grandmother's eyes flitted between the man and Emily.
We can't leave this basement. We can't. They've already found you once, he whispered, urgency tainting every word. It was only thanks to the shadows that you eluded them. Time is slipping away. They will come for what they want, and they won't stop until they have it. A cold shiver ran down Emily's spine as she processed what he was saying. Her life, her family's past, it was all intertwined in something deeper and darker than she had ever imagined. "What do we do, Grandma?" Emily's voice wavered. She looked at her grandmother, whose face now reflected pure fear, mingled with a hint of regret. "Do we trust him?" Footsteps suddenly halted at the basement door, harsh whispers seeping through the crack around it. Emily could hear the unmistakable sound of keys rattling, canisters shifting above. "We have no choice," her grandmother finally whispered, all fight gone from her voice. "We have to know the truth. But know this, whatever you choose, it could change everything." The door rattled, the shadows in the basement flickering with the glow of the approaching light. "Follow me," the man urged, stepping toward the dark passage behind him. "Wait!" Emily grasped her grandmother's hand, squeezing tight. "Are you ready for this? What if we're walking into a trap?" "This is the only way to ensure our safety," her grandmother murmured, pain flecking her voice. As they prepared to leave their hiding place, uncertainty twisted in Emily's gut. They were about to step into the unknown. Could the truth really shield them from the dangers looming above? And more importantly, if they emerged with this truth, what would it cost them? The man cast one last look toward the door, steeling himself. "They won't be patient forever. We must go, now," Emily inhaled sharply, fighting the dread swelling in her heart. With one final glance back at the basement, her childhood sanctuary, now turned into a nest of secrets, she took a step toward the man, toward the truth she hoped would save them, or doom them. The man urged them forward, his hand guiding them into the shadowy passage. Darkness enveloped them, the musty scent of earth and old wood filling the air as they stepped beyond the threshold. Emily squeezed her grandmother's hand tighter, her heart thundering in her chest. Each step felt like a leap into an abyss where the unknown awaited. "Where are we going?" Emily's voice shattered the silence, her fear spilling over, not only for herself, but for her grandmother, who had always been her anchor. "A place where they cannot reach you, for now," the man answered, his tone firm yet not without a flicker of compassion. "You'll learn more in a moment." They walked deeper into the darkness, the only sounds being their hurried footsteps and the distant thrum of panic above. Emily could no longer hear the footsteps or whispers. Had they lost them, or was this merely the calm before the storm?
The tunnel opened up into a small chamber, the dim light from an air shaft illuminating the walls marked with etchings and symbols that made her skin crawl. This hidden spot felt alive, pulsating with an energy both ancient and unsettling. Emotions swirled around her. Curiosity and dread mingled tightly. "Sit here," the man gestured to a worn bench that hugged the wall. Emily hesitated, looking to her grandmother for a signal. The older woman's face was drawn but resolute. She nodded as if to say, "We must trust him." They sat, and the man took a breath, steadying himself. "You must know who you are, Emily. You are part of a legacy that has been buried for far too long." "Legacy?" Emily asked, confusion coursing through her. "What do you mean?" "The power you possess is more than just blood. Your ancestors were protectors of this land. They couldn't protect themselves back then. But you have the chance now to reclaim what is rightfully yours." Emily felt a chill sweep through her. "What do you mean, reclaim? They're dead." "Dead but not gone," he countered, his eyes narrowing. "Their spirits linger. They need a voice, and now they linger in you. The moment you face them by coming down here, you've chosen to uncover the truth." The air felt electric as Emily processed his words. "Do you really think I can make a difference? All I want is to keep my family safe. I'm just a farmer's daughter." "Exactly," the man said firmly. "You are a farmer's daughter, and you have inherited not just their struffles, but their strength. There's power in knowing your history, in facing your fears head on." "Then what do I do?" Emily swallowed hard, daring to hope, but then fear crept in again. "What if I fail?" "Failure is not your fate," he replied, "but you must act. The people above are searching for you. They want what you possess. The knowledge of your ancestors lies in the sacred grounds." "What do they want?" Emily's voice trembled as she thought of the man's warnings echoing in her head.
This land is more than dirt and crops. It holds secrets that could shift the balance of power in their favor. They believe you're the key. Emily's heart sank, the implications pressing down on her like a leaden weight. But how can I fight them? I'm not a warrior. By accepting who you are, he replied, urgency creeping back into his tone. Your lineage is filled with warriors. It's in your blood. But first, you'll need to trust your instincts. You have only later this night to prepare. Just then, a lava crash echoed from above, the sound of splintering wood reverberating in the chamber. Emily's stomach flipped. This was it. Their pursuers had breached the basement door. What do we do? Emily hissed, panic overtaking her again. Follow me, he commanded sharply. There's another exit. With adrenaline surging, they stood, hearts pounding, ready to run. But as they turned to follow him, Emily's grandmother stopped, a faraway look in her eyes.
I can't leave without facing them first, she said quietly, resolve shining through her fear. Grandma, Emily cried out, panic gripping her. Please! The man placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, grounding her. Let her be. She knows what she's doing. But you must trust her and trust yourself. As the walls vibrated with the sound of footsteps drawing closer, Emily felt time stretching, holding its breath. Was her grandmother right? If they divided now, what would happen? Let's go, the man urged. But as Emily looked at her grandmother, now a ghost of the woman she knew, her heart clenched. She sensed the looming conflict, the truth about to tear their family apart, or bring them closer than ever before. And as the door burst open, flooding the chamber with light, Emily would have to make a choice that could change everything. What sacrifice must she make, and could it lead her to the truth at last? The doorway exploded inward, revealing harsh light and silhouettes that loomed ominously over them. Emily's breath caught in her throat at the sight of those relentless figures, their pursuers, clad in dark clothing, eyes glinting with ruthless determination. Go now, the man urged, his voice sharp with urgency. Emily felt the weight of his command, but she couldn't move. Her gaze locked onto her grandmother, the woman who had always been her protecting shield. Emily, listen to him, her grandmother urged, but there was an unsettling calm in her voice that only fueled Emily's panic. Grandma, she shouted, feeling a fierce pull in her heart. I'm not leaving without standing up for our family, her grandmother persisted, her voice firm as granite, eyes blazing with an ancient fire. Suddenly, the figures surged forward, and all at once, the chamber's shadows fell prey to the threatening rush of light. Emily, the man reached for her, but her feet remained rooted, her spirit wavering between loyalty and fear. Fight for us, her grandmother whispered, the weight of the moment crashing down. Right then, the darkness didn't feel so suffocating. It felt like an invitation, a call to something deeper. Trust your blood, the man urged again, stepping closer, urgency throbbing through his words. You have the strength, you just have to embrace it. But with each passing second, the danger pressed closer. Do you truly understand what facing them means? Emily found herself asking in a trembling voice, the truth settling in like heavy fog. I understand enough to know that standing together is our only chance. As the figures drew nearer, anxiety rushed through her. Emily's mind raced. She recalled faint stories her grandmother had told her about ancient battles, about how their family had once protected every inch of this land with fierce loyalty. What had shifted now to make fleeing seem like the only option? The moment wavered, teetering on the brink of choice.
Involuntarily, her hand brushed against the worn fabric of her grandmother's sleeve. I can't leave you here. And you shouldn't. The certainty in her grandmother's voice radiated like a beacon. But this is bigger than us now. You know what you have to do. Time blurred, and before Emily could respond, the figures reached them, faces illuminated in the harsh light, wild eyes, menacing grins. Panic flared. Leave the old woman. She's of no concern, one of them growled, eyes fixed on Emily. But the moment her grandmother stepped protectively in front of Emily, warmth radiated through their connection, powerful and grounded. The air filled with vibrational energy, and suddenly all those stories and ancestral whispers rushed back to Emily, gifts of courage passed down through generations. Together, she heard the man shout, and just like that, Emily felt the pulse of her ancestors within her. With a breath of determination, "No!" she shouted, her voice sharp enough to shatter the tension. "We will stand together." As her words filled the chamber, light swirled around them, casting shadows that danced erratically along the walls. The figures paused, confusion flickering across their faces. "Back away, you have no idea what you're up against," the man added, grounding their unity. A sudden wave of energy surged through Emily. She looked at her grandmother, and they shared a profound understanding, a promise of strength that transcended fear. "Are you ready?" her grandmother asked softly. "Yes," Emily breathed, feeling the swell of power rise within her. And as the silhouettes moved closer again, a strange calm washed over Emily and her grandmother. They braced for the oncoming storm, a legacy awakening inside them. But even with their union, could be enough to shift the battle unfolding before them? As they faced their fate, a question burned in Emily's mind. Was it strength that would win out, or sacrifice? Could embracing the truth of her ancestors finally lead them to victory, or would they find themselves caught in something they were not prepared for? With those uncertainties hanging, the impending clash loomed closer. The air crackled with tension as Emily and her grandmother stood boldly together against the approaching figures, the flash of fear mingling with an exhilarating sense of duty. They shared a glance filled with resolution, an unspoken bond igniting within them, a shared legacy of strength and courage that echoed from generations past. "Remember our stories," Emily's grandmother shouted, her voice unwavering even as shadows drew closer. In that moment, memories surged through Emily's mind, tales of ancestors who stood tall against overwhelming odds. A flame of determination ignited in her chest, spreading warmth through her veins. They weren't alone.
They were part of something bigger, a lineage of warriors who fought not just for the land, but for the community they loved, for the very essence of who they were. "What do you think you can do?" one of the dark figures sneered, stepping forward with a mocking grin. "You think a mere girl and her frail grandmother can stop us?" "We're more than mere," Emily declared, her voice gaining strength. "We're not just defending land, we're reclaiming our spirit, our history. You don't know what you're dealing with." And just like that, the air thickened with the force of her belief. The lights flickered, the shadows grew restless, as though the spirits of her ancestors were awakening alongside them. Emily felt a pull, a rush of energy that swelled inside her, drawing from the strength of her lineage, urging her to rise. "Together!" she shouted, feeling the heat of connection at the fingertips where she held her grandmother's hand. "We stand as one, united by our past, motivated by our future." The figures hesitated, confusion crossing their faces. For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered in their menacing gazes. The weight of history flooded the room, and Emily stepped forward, leading her grandmother into the light with confidence burning in her heart. "Enough of this charade." The man who had been guiding them stepped forward, his voice bold. "You threaten the very foundation upon which your lives stand, and now you face the consequences of your actions." With that, Emily felt a rush of energy pulse through her, a sudden resolve that surged louder than the storm. It was no longer about escaping or evading. It was about standing firm in their truth. "Face us!" she cried, channeling the collective spirit of all those who came before her, warriors, caretakers, storytellers, and their voices filled her, wrapping her in a protective embrace. "You came here to silence us, but we will not go quietly." Before the figures could react, the base of the world beneath them felt alive. Roots, ancient words, and histories intertwined. Emily and her grandmother stood strong, their hands pressed together, grounding their ancestors' spirits into the unfolding reality. "Do you know what you want to erase?" Ruth's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. "Memories of love, family, and resilience. You underestimate our power." Like a thunderclap, the room erupted with radiant light, energy spiraling out as their unity grounded itself in reality. Emily and her grandmother expanded the flames of their bond, pushing back against the darkness threatening to engulf them. The dark figures faltered, caught in the overwhelming blaze of their defiance. Emily sensed the tide turning, awareness dawning upon her adversaries. The battle ignited not with violence, but with the strength of love for their home, history, and each other. One figure stepped back, eyes wide with revelation.
What is this? How can they be so? But Emily seized the opportunity. Together!
We are not just a family. We're a community, and we will not let you take that away. A roar erupted from the depths of her voice, drowned out only by the thunderous beating of her heart, wild and free. Light radiated from them, a barrier woven of unconditional love and spirit, clashing against shadows that once threatened to extinguish hope. The dark silhouettes grew dimmer, as if the very essence of their presence unraveled in the incandescent glow. Anger transformed to uncertainty, and the energy of Emily and her grandmother thrummed in tandem with the heartbeat of the land, rooted, grounded, unyielding. "Run!" the man shouted, motioning the enemies back as the light swallowed their shadows. As they retreated, Emily's heart soared. This was the power they had unearthed, the legacy they had awakened. Breathless, she turned to her grandmother, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We did it! We stood for everything!" Ruth enveloped her in a warm embrace, their laughter cascading through the chamber while the remnants of darkness fled into the shadows. "No, my darling, this is just the beginning." As they stepped into the light, solidarity blossomed around them. Neighbors, friends, and family emerged from the paths and alleyways, drawn by their fire. Emily was no longer just a farmer's daughter. She was a beacon of hope, a leader emerging from the silence, linked inextricably to the deep roots of her ancestry. Together, they faced the horizon, the dawn spilling sunlight as it opened a new chapter, one stitched tightly with the fabric of community, history, and love. Emily embraced the uncertainty ahead with optimism. The fight for their home wasn't over, but they now held the knowledge, the power, and most importantly, each other. And as they marched forward, purpose bubbling within them, Emily realized they hadn't just reclaimed a home. They had woven a legacy, a tapestry that would carry them through darkness towards an unstoppable light. And now, I ask you, are you ready to join this incredible journey? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories, because these moments matter. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your love fuels our creativity. Comment your feelings about this transformation and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share this powerful message.